Security now a major concern for the Supreme Court in the wake of the leaked draft opinion on Roe v. Wade. Fencing is up and Senate Republicans are advancing a new security bill as left-wing groups call for protests next week at the homes of conservative justices on the high court. Joining us now is the former prosecutor, constitutional law attorney and Newsmax contributor, Ameer Benno. Ameer, we appreciate you being with us. This story has had an enormous impact, and many analysts believe that this is exactly the impact that the leaker intended, to apply outside pressure on the Supreme Court, to push Congress to pass meaningful legislation to codify Roe into law, and to also renew the argument that there need to be justices added to the Supreme Court to balance out what many say is a conservative-leaning court. I want to get your reaction to the leak draft opinion and how significant that is for the independence of the court.
Well, it's great to be here, Kilmany. Thanks for having me. It's unprecedented, obviously, this kind of a leak. There have been leaks in the past as to where judges will fall on either side of a particular issue, but not a draft opinion like this, certainly not one that has such significant repercussions across the country as abortion. And so this is really sort of new territory. I do agree with you. I think the most plausible theory is that this was a leak. I don't like using the word leak, I'll say, first of all, because I think that is a little bit almost too tepid of a word. I think that this is really an attack on an institution of government and our democratic process and the independence of the judiciary. Because like you say, I think it was intended precisely to gin up public sentiment, to put pressure on the court and on Congress. The court to hopefully backtrack or have some judges flip from the majority to take a different position. So to keep the constitutional right recognized by the Supreme Court of abortion, or like you said, for Congress in order to give a push for legislation to codify Roe, perhaps to pack the court, perhaps to limit the Supreme Court's jurisdiction, any number of those things, it could have been the intent. And so that is obviously, well, I say obviously, I think it's obvious, but it seems apparent to me that that's the purpose of this disclosure of this draft opinion at this stage. And
given the impact, Ameer, that is precisely why we're seeing Republicans press to find the source. We know that the Chief Justice, John Roberts, has appointed the Supreme Court marshal with investigating who, for lack of a better word, leaked this. And then on top of that, you have the Republican Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell calling on the Justice Department as well as the FBI to investigate this, because all of this, they say, erodes the trust in the institution itself. But Democrats have really hit out at Republicans for keeping the focus on who gave this to Politico.
Yeah, well, that's the story, is who gave this information, and they should be prosecuted, whoever that individual is. And it's not clear what side of the aisle they're on. There is a school of thought that says that it could be somebody who's on the conservative camp, who wanted to lock those justices in to their view on the majority on the draft opinion in the Dobbs case. Because once it gets out there, if a judge chose to defect to the other side, it would be seen as caving to public sentiment, which the judges don't want to do. So this would hopefully keep them stuck where they are. We don't know, but whoever did it should be criminally prosecuted. I think, first of all, ethically, there's violations. If they're an attorney, they should have their license suspended or they should be disbarred. And there's a variety of federal criminal statutes that would apply to this. When you take federal information, documents for personal use, or when you take them from the repository in the court without authorization, or what's interesting is using the statute that was used against the January 6th protesters, a statute that makes it criminal to corruptly influence an official proceeding. And whoever took this and leaked it out, did it with the intention of influencing the outcome of this decision. So to me, it seems to fit squarely within the four corners of that statute. We'll see if the Justice Department, if it turns out to be somebody who's on the left who did it, will show some parity, some equality of treatment to that individual or those individuals to the way that they treated the January 6th protesters.
And the left-wing group called Ruth Sent Us has advertised on their website a walk-by Wednesday targeting the homes, publishing the home addresses of these 6 conservative-leaning judges. The White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki was asked about this on Thursday, and she declined to take a position. Listen to this.
Peaceful protest? No, peaceful protest is not extreme. I think our view here is that peaceful protest, there's a long history in the United States and the country of that. And we certainly encourage people to keep it peaceful and not resort to any level of violence.
All right, that was actually a little bit different from a comment that she made in the press briefing where she said, I don't have an official U.S. government position on where people should protest. We, of course, want it to be peaceful, and certainly the president would want people's privacy to be respected. But you now have a Republican and a Democratic senator putting out legislation to provide additional security for these justices right now. What do you make of the reaction coming out of the Biden administration on that? Why not take a tough stance and protect the justices in this instance here?
Well, that's a great question. And why hasn't Biden done so many different things that would seem obvious to most reasonable-minded people that he should do? He's caving to the left of his party, which is becoming, day by day, the majority of his party. But keep in mind, this is the same kind of terroristic activity that was done during the Kimberly Potter case. Remember that case that got national attention? The police officer in Minnesota who shot Dante Wright. Yep. They went to the judge's house. She was doxxed. They protested outside of her house. Now, they're now doing the same thing with the Supreme Court. It is a policy of intimidation, pressure tactics, intimidation, scare tactics to try to browbeat these justices to come out a particular way and to ignore their oath to the Constitution and to the rule of law, and instead to cave to public sentiment. That is not what they're there to do. That's not what the Constitution exists to do. And so hopefully those judges will be true to their convictions. And if legislation needs to pass to prosecute individuals, obviously consistent with First Amendment principles, but there does cross a line when your right to protest crosses into public intimidation, and it's no longer protected speech.
Yeah, Ameer, I wanted to ask you, we originally were expecting the ruling on the Mississippi case in maybe late June or early July. Is that the case, or do you think with sort of the public discourse that we're seeing, we may see that sooner?
Yeah, that's hard to say. I mean, because of everything we've seen now, we might see a release of the decision sooner. Of course, typically the end of the term is going to be the end of June, the beginning of July. And big items like this, cases like this, will generally be delayed, the release, until that point. So hard to say when it will get released. It's hard to say whether this early disclosure will accelerate the process.
Ameer Benno, always a pleasure.